I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expected to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. If I'm sounding all right, please let me know. I haven't checked it since last time, and I kind of moved some things around. And I know, like, for instance, in my interview with Steve, the audio on my end wasn't the greatest, and that had to do because I was moving some things around. So let me know if it sounds okay. Give us a thumbs up if it sounds all right. Like, subscribe. You know what to do. Today, we got a interesting show for you guys, at least in my opinion. We're going to be going over some new documents. There was a Airmail article by Howard Blum referencing Dr. Katherine Ramsland and dropped some new information about Bryan Kohberger and what he was doing in and around the times that the murders happened and with his communications. And so we're going to get into all that. And also, I got a little snippet from another interview that Steve G did with Ashley Banfield that it brings up some interesting points, a little bit more of a detail into some of the injuries that, unfortunately, his daughter Kaylee suffered through the attack allegedly committed by Bryan Kohberger. So before we get into the conversation, I'm going to remind you guys of our partnership with DataSeal. If you have any concerns about your privacy on the interwebs, whether it's your name, address, date of birth, phone number, religious preference, voting preference, check out DataSeal. You get a 5% discount. Also, guys, we still do have our Firing Squad House Bill 37 t-shirts on the website at Bonfire. Link is in the description. Make sure you guys get yours. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. So there was a couple of documents that were dropped today. Well, you know what? First, before I get into it, the title of the show, there's this part that says the FBI. I was going to talk about something, but I'm not quite ready to show how I know it yet. But, it had to reference when the FBI became familiar with Bryan Kohberger. We all know when Moscow Police Department became familiar with Bryan Kohberger. They got his name December 19th. Howard Blum had indicated that there was at least some time between the time that the FBI had his name and the time that they gave it up. And so I think that I may have found something. And so I'm still going through it to confirm some things. It has to do with some cameras in Colorado. And so I'll leave it at that. Once I confirm and verify all those things, and I'll come out with that. The other thing as well, well, that'll be it. I'll explain some other things that we have planned for the future once we get a clear schedule. So without further ado, let's get into today's topic. The first thing that we're going to talk about is a motion to seal the motion for examination pursuant to 18207, the extension of time. So let's look at that. This one's a interesting document. This says here, come now, the state of Idaho hereby moves the court for an order sealing the state motions to examination of the defendant for an extension of time to complete a rebuttal penalty phase expert disclosure. The motion declarations and company exhibits reveal personal private information of the defendant and affect his privacy. The filings reveal his mental health information about the defendant, including psychological, psychiatric, and neurological information and diagnoses of the defendant. The filing also reveals the nature of a mental condition examinations already conducted and types of examinations and testing the state seeks to perform, some of which personal testing to which the defendant objects. And so that's interesting right here. You know, we've already known that they've objected to or have also been granted the motion to of limiting of using the terms like psychopath or sociopath. But clearly they're afraid of Bryan Kohberger seeing an independent doctor that could evaluate him. I don't see what the problem should be with that, you know, having an expert do that. But, you know, again, I'm not the legal expert, so I'm not sure. You know, I would have thought that, you know, especially if you're claiming you have these disabilities that are preventing you from being able to have committed this crime, that if there's a doctor that can clear you that is independent, you may want to speak to that doctor. I don't think that there's doctors that work for the state that are just looking to, you know, prosecute people. I don't think that's what their job entails. And so, but I could be wrong. I'm not a legal expert on that aspect. I just feel that it's probably not that. All right. So, but biggest point about this is that the defendant is objecting to certain aspects of a potential having a doctor speak to him. And then in the following motion is the sealing of that motion, but it states here that there may be a hearing that can be held on the matter. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we end up hearing or seeing some sort of pretrial hearing referencing this ordeal. It may be closed. It may be one of those ex parte stuff, because this is something that is, if the defendant is found guilty, this is the guilty phase things. I don't know if you want to put, I don't know if you should put, you know, that information ahead of the trial. And so, yeah, just food for thought there, that there may be a hearing, an ex parte. If we see something about an ex parte hearing, it's probably going to be referencing this. All right, so let's get to the one of the bigger orders that they had. This is the order on the defendant's motion to strike the death penalty and adopt other necessary procedures. The defendant contends that the discovery produced by the state in this case has voluminous and unorganized, thus rendering him unable to meaningfully review and investigate the state's evidence in time for trial. All right. So they're going to speak on a couple of things. They're going to bring up Brady versus Maryland, and talks about how a prosecutor has a constitutional duty to disclose favorable evidence to the accused, whether evidence is material, either guilt or to be or to punishment. Brady does not, however, grant broad discovery rights to the defendant. So right here, right off the bat, it's not looking good for Bryan Kohberger. It seems like the judge here is already siding with the state, which is, you know, the argument is that there's so much evidence against him that they can't possibly go through it. And the judge brings up some excellent points here. Let's see. It simply imposes a due process standard upon prosecutors by requiring them to disclose favorable material evidence. The defendant complains that the state failed to satisfy its obligation under Brady due to its method of discovery production. He contends the state has turned over more than 68 terabytes of data in discovery, consisting in excess of 13,000 photographs, 15,000 video clips. Now, let's break that down a little bit. The 13,000 photographs. That's pretty extensive. We know that there was several different crime scenes within the scene. Right, the house was a crime scene on its own, but you had two separate, somewhat separate acts of violence in that house. One on the third floor, one on the second floor. Uh, you know, so you have those two things, and you have the space in between. You know, the exterior of the home. Then you have his apartment. You probably have you're going to be photographing his workplace. You have his parents' home, his vehicle. Uh, you know, I would reckon if they had any idea of where they may have he may have been during that night, if they went and did any searches of any places, they probably are looking at something like um, those type of pictures. But I think that the photographs probably are going to be more in line with, you probably want to go through all those. Now, the 15,000 video clips, 8,000 video clips from residences, the 15,000 are from businesses. That's going to be when they were looking for the vehicle in that area, the white Elantra. You know, I think they're going to specify here that a lot of that is irrelevant, you know, and so that's probably going to take up a lot of that 68 terabytes of data as well. But the photographs is interesting. The video clips, I can see that how a lot of it can be irrelevant. This continues to say it also includes more than 60 digital devices, digital data, and search warrant return data. Defendant also contends the state has not provided the discovery in searchable format and has not provided a detailed logs and indexes that would facilitate the defense's review of the material, and has not specifically identified any Brady evidence. While the state acknowledges there is a massive amount of data in this case, it contends that majority is completely irrelevant. Specifically, the state contends that most of the data from the cell phone extractions of weeks of surveillance video footage throughout the Moscow area obtained following the homicides. It affirmed on the record that it was unaware of any Brady material in those videos or other than those specifically identified in the motion practice and otherwise throughout the case. Further, the state experts who reviewed the various devices, including cell phones and other digital data, have disclosed opinions that they found no connection between the defendant and the victims from the devices and data, meaning that there wasn't any like contact information, there wasn't any phone savings, there wasn't a like, for instance, I believe if somebody's following someone, that's only one way. Somebody would have to follow them back for that to be a connection. You get what I'm saying? And so there's not that type of information, in my opinion, that's going to be found there. And I think that's what it explains here. The state also notes that since this case began over 2 years ago, it has consequently turned over the defendant all information it's received from various investigative agencies in the same format as information it was received to the state. This was done at the defendant's request. Remember, this is the request of the defendant. They're the ones that asked for it, and they've asked for it to be done in this certain manner as well. Now, they also asked that they get an index and a how-to on how they plan on trying this case, basically from the prosecution. Even the judge has stated that and several times, and also including into this document and other documents, that it almost seems as if Ann Taylor's wanting the state to do her job for her. Take that for what it is. Let's see. In addition to, the state points out on September 4th, 2024, at approximately the same time as the discovery deadline, it provided the defendant with a 320-page index identifying the location of requested discovery, a description of the evidence, and the data and the date discovered. So they gave them all their information that they wanted. And yet they still cry and complain because there's been several motions since then that they've had the same argument. But yeah, look, there it is. There it is. She even got them to finally say, all right, well, what does this tell you? If the state is willing to concede and say, all right, we'll help you out, we'll point this. Do you think they're doing that if their case is strong or weak? Right? You're doing that when your case is strong. It's kind of like when you're playing football and you're telling the defense, hey, we're gonna run the ball, and we're gonna run the ball right here. You can't stop it. That's basically what they're doing in this scenario, saying, all right, We'll tell you where the evidence is, because there's nothing that you can do that's going to overpower it. It's too strong and you're too weak. This is a show of strength by them doing this, in my opinion. I love it. I love it. All right, let's continue. In addition, all the evidence received from the FBI, which compromises the majority, was provided to the defendant with a searchable index. Great stuff. Great stuff. I want to say thank you to Midwest, also one of our newest mods. A member is gifted a Drunk Turkey Show membership. Thank you so much. The defendant has not established a discovery violation. The sanctions are not warranted. So right off the bat, this one just tells you that this is also going to spiral downward for Mr. Kohberger as well. There are three components to a true Brady violation. The evidence at issue must be favorable to the accused, either by it being exculpatory or because it's impeaching. That evidence must have been suppressed by the state, either willfully or inadvertently, and prejudice must have ensued. The defendant appears to have acknowledged that the hearing cannot establish these elements because he has not identified any withheld evidence that is exculpatory or impeaching. Boom. I mean, there is absolutely nothing. Now, this is the judge saying this. This is the judge too. They're saying that they have not withheld any evidence that is exculpatory or impeaching. Now, I guess Bryan Kohberger and his defense team can say, oh, well, they're lying and they're hiding things, but come on now. Further, he has not identified any obligation under ICR that the state has violated. His quibble, rather, is with the method in which the state has produced discovery, arguing it's effectively a data dump and prevents him from meaningfully reviewing the data or the discovery for Brady material. There are, however, several problems with the defendant's position. While the Supreme Court in Brady held the government may not properly conceal exculpatory evidence from the defendant, it does not place any burden upon the government to conduct a defendant's investigation or assist the presentation of the defense case or assist in the presentation of the defense's case. Basically saying, not do the work for you. Not do the work for you. And this is something that they have been asking. Like, it's just baloney. Further, voluminous discovery alone is not a basis for finding concealment under Brady. This method of discovery, which the defendant requested of the state in this case, carries the recognized benefit of increasing the efficiency and the fairness of the criminal process. It is only when the government uses the open file policy to hide exculpatory material, otherwise prevent the defendant's access to such material, that a Brady violation will be found. That's just not the case here. However, where there is no proof that the government larded its production with entirely irrelevant documents or made access to the documents unduly onerous, I probably pronounced that wrong, a Brady violation will not be found. Here, the defendant has not shown any bad faith by the state with regard to discovery production. While the discovery is indeed voluminous, the court does not find that the manner in which the state produced it violates Brady or otherwise constitute misconduct. The discovery was produced to the defendant as he specifically requested. The state received the information from its investigating agencies, labeled the materials, and sent them over to the defendant throughout a shared access drive in the same format as it was received. This method not only puts the state and the defendant on equal footing regarding the discovery review, it also serves as an important purpose of protecting against claims of missing or manipulating documents if the state puts them in a different format or organizes otherwise conveys them to the defendant in a different manner than received. And so he's even saying here, the judge, I like the way they're doing it because now you can't make any other false claims. He's not claiming they've made false claims in the past, but those can read between the lines when you read a statement as strong as that. My opinion. Onerous. Oh, there you go. That's how you say it. Onerous. Thank you. And welcome, NGO, being a newest member. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to put it in Discord after the show. A link to our Discord, guys. All right, let's see. All right. The state acknowledged that much discovery is completely irrelevant, including surveillance video and data from numerous phones, computers, and other devices. It did not produce it for the purpose of peddling or filing or otherwise attempting in bad faith. Rather, the defendant asked for everything, and everything is what he received. The defendant cannot demand everything under the sun and then complain about the weight of all the planets. I love this judge. I wish there were more judges like Judge Hitler. I mean, he's pointing out where they're being contradictory. He's pointing out where they're basically just kind of making these baseless claims. I mean, he's even used the term baseless in other reports. And not only is he pointing it out, he's not allowing it to go forward. He's not allowing it to, he's not allowing something that is could be a clear violation of anything, and then let it take over this case and let them move forward and allow the defense to do whatever they want, like Judge was doing, in my opinion. Maybe other judges too. Moreover, the defendant has not produced any evidence showing the state has hidden braided material or made access to discovery unduly onerous. Thank you for showing me how to say that. Although the state did not provide all the discovery in searchable format, as it was not received by the state in such a format. It provided a 320-page index identifying specific location of evidence produced in the response of the defendant's 400 individual discovery requests. Remember, a lot of that was for his AT&T call records, and it's because they misunderstood the documents and misunderstood having knowledge of the 7-day retention time period that AT&T withheld those AT&T records, those call records. Remember that? Well, they had even Ann Taylor said, she even told the judge, she's like, a lot of our motions were based off of this. And he was like, so what? Now that you know that there was a 7-day, which you should have known. I mean, especially if you have somebody claiming to have worked with AT&T and gathering these records for 15 years, you think they would have known that they only held them for 7 days up until just recently. You know what I mean? Like, that was a failure on the expert and a failure on the lawyer for reading and understanding the state's response, that they were responding with Cy Ray's affidavit of conspiracy, which is exactly what the judge called it, a conspiracy theory. Junk science is what another judge called it too. Take that for what it is. Those aren't my words. Those were judges that were presiding over cases in which he either wanted to or was a part of. All right, let's continue. In addition, the defendant's complaints of being unable to meaningfully review the discovery ring hollow. The defendant has been receiving discovery in the same manner for over 2 years, and in that time, he has not once sought out to remedy of this court to regulate discovery, such as in requiring the state to provide discovery in a different format. He has not sought out additional resources to hire additional staff to review discovery or obtain litigation document control software to help organize or sort out the evidence. His lead counsel insisted that she be allowed to take on a second high-profile capital case despite the voluminous discovery in this case. Wow. I mean, he's pointing out the obvious. He's not, like I said, he's not going to let them come in here and dictate and claim, cry wolf and this, that, and a third, and let them take over this case. This is an excellent judge. I wish more were like him. Let's see what this is. Footnote 10, State versus Schuyler Meade, Nez Perez County case, C State versus Kohberger. Hey, I might look into this Schuyler Meade case. Let's see what's going on in that one. It's a high profile case. I have no idea about it. That might be the next case we look into. Maybe I'll become a bad thorn in the side of Ann Taylor's rear or something like that if I start talking about this case and pointing out, I don't know. Well, first and foremost, I don't know anything about it, so I'd have to look into it. But I'd be interested to see if the same tactics are being in place, see if there's some stall tactics, see if there's, all these motion to compels and all these things. See if she is trying that case in the same manner. I mean, if she's not, and there's a difference in some of the cases that she's tried in the past, maybe that's some sort of clue or evidence that it's because of the defendant that she is maybe there's some kind of control there at dictating where they go, and that's why it appears to be different. So I think it'd be an interesting thing to look into. Skylar Mead, we'll look into this guy. All right, let's continue. Further, at oral argument, lead counsel indicated that her practice is to personally review all the discovery herself, rather than rely on associates and staff to review the materials to cut through the less relevant information and point out to the materials need review by lead counsel. So she said, hey, I don't need anybody else to help me. I like to look at it all by myself anyways, all of it, 100%. And so when they grant her this wish, and they grant her all this information, and they grant it in the manner that that she requested it, and now they have a problem with it. Funny. These actions are not indicative of an overburdened defense team. And I like the way he says that. I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, she's taking on a second case. You know, she's the one saying that she didn't need to hire anybody else. You know, obviously a lot of this is irrelevant stuff, you know, just camera footage of random things, you know, that they had taken into evidence. So take that for what it is. She should have hired some more people. I mean, at the end of the day, she only had, the state only had 6 weeks more than the defense did as far as gathering evidence and all this other stuff, you know, to create their case. You know, granted, you know, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, they had a lot of officers and stuff. Yeah, but they were tracing down tips, and they were doing a bunch of things. It wasn't until December 19th when they got his name. It's December 19th when Moscow Police Department got his name. That's when that investigation against Bryan Kohberger started. And so in reality, you're looking at an extra 10 days, you know, outside of what they knew from the scene. I mean, the only thing they were able to gather was there was a knife sheath. There was a white vehicle that was traveling around outside. They got the DNA on the knife sheath. But, you know, outside of that, how much did they have to connect Bryan Kohberger until they got his name? Not much. Not much at all. I think that if it wasn't for the DNA on the knife sheath, they may have had a problem connecting these dots for a little bit. Maybe not forever. I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think this guy was clearly showing some signs of escalation in the past, and, you know, him searching for knives again. I wouldn't be surprised if he was going to try to commit another crime. And in the end, I think he would have gotten caught regardless. I mean, there was already some red flags about the guy. You know what I mean? You know, students at WSU were reporting him. He was losing his job, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so let's continue this. In the cases cited by the defendant where courts have struck the death penalty as a sentence option, the defendant has demonstrated the prosecution either willfully or inadvertently, but with extreme resulting prejudice, violated discovery obligations. Here, however, the defendant has not established discovery violation under Brady or ICR 16 in the first place. He has shown that the state has attempted to conceal specific materials. He has not shown that the state has attempted to conceal specific materials within the discovery, and he has not shown the discovery to be unduly burdensome to the point where he has unable to examine the items of material of evidentiary value. Consequently, there is no basis for any sanction, let alone striking the death penalty. Dang. That's a boom there, that's for sure. Let's see. Kind of just scroll through here real quick, make sure I'm not missing any questions. All right, I'm caught up. If you have any questions, put a couple stars. I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to see them all. But I do want to say thank you to Silshine for Jesus Christ. I like that name. Thank you for being the newest member. NGO, thank you as well. Thank you, guys. Thank you. AT doesn't want the state to evaluate BK. You know why? Yeah, I agree. You got to love Judge Hippler. He's a no BS straight shooter and has a backbone. The steel kind of judge. Justice for Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. Great show, Dan. Thank you, Artworks. I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you so much. All right. So let's continue this. The court declines to impose organizational requirements on the state. The defendant initially asked the court to require the state to identify Brady material or hot documents within its discovery. The court finds neither is warranted. All right. While the defendant is currently incarcerated, he has a robust defense team and has not faced time constraints given his speedy trial waiver, and with this case well over 2 years old. The defendant has had nearly as much time as the state to review the discovery. The defendant was arrested on December 30th, 2022, approximately 6 weeks after the homicides. The defense counsel has noticed, defense counsel filed a notice of appearance on January 12, 2023, and the state first began providing discovery on January 18, 2023. Thus, this is not a situation where the state has had the benefit of years-long investigation compared to the defendant, who is mere months to review the investigation material. So it's a completely different situation and scenarios. Like I said, in reality, from the time that they got his name was December 19th. That's when they started building the case against him. He was arrested the 29th, I believe. It's 10 days later, and in that time they had to find him. I think they knew where he was at. I think the FBI had been watching him for a while. If I had to take a guess, I'd say at least a week before December 19th, but that's my guess. Maybe 7 days to the day, maybe not. I don't know. But that would be my best guess, somewhere around that time frame. Let's continue here. In addition, there is no need to require the state to disclose a list of hot documents, which is a tool imposed by some courts for particular voluminous discovery to aid the defendant in identifying material that deserves closer attention. The state has effectively already done so. The defendant was indicted by a grand jury. The defendant is privy to, I moved a little bit. The defendant is privy to all evidence produced to the state at grand jury proceedings in this manner. The state recently disclosed as exhibit in the witness list identifying precisely the state intended to use to support its case. Additionally, the state has taken reasonable steps to the defendant in navigating through the discovery, and goes through again, adding the index, et cetera, et cetera. So based on the states here, consequently, the court declines to impose additional organizational requirements. Based on the foregoing, defendant's motion to strike the death penalty and adopt other necessary procedures due to the state's disclosure violations is denied. And it's in all capital letters. Now, I know it's always on capital letters, whether it's granted or denied or whatever, but it's just looks like it should be even bolder right now. It's denied. It's gone. There it is. Anyone know if he's receiving love letters in jail? I don't know if he's receiving love letters in jail or not, but that's funny. He probably is, from some weirdos. All right, let's continue. Let's see. So the motion is denied. A lot of interesting things. My favorite quote, though, was, "You can't ask for everything under the sun and then complain about the weight of the planets." That was clever, man. I really like this judge. He's witty. He's to the point, direct, and sticks to the facts, and sticks to these rulings. It's was there a violation or was there not? And if there isn't, he's not going to go into this game where, there's could be this interpretation or that. No, boom, gone. And this is why I think coming on August 11th, that this trial is going to take place on time. Jury selection is going to happen on that date. I believe that's when jury selection starts. And the trial will commence as it shall, and I think we're going to find out by the end of this year. I don't think it's going to be very long verdict. I don't know, probably an hour and a half. I know it's way too soon to guess that, but if I had to take a guess right now, I don't think it's going to take very long. Not long at all. All right. So let's see. Oh, somebody got their t-shirt yesterday. Florence. Nice. I appreciate that. Thank you. I got mine hung up. I washed it and stuff, but what do you call it? My wife's like, "You can't wear it again." And I was like, "All right, I won't wear it again. So I have like 50 black shirts. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like black's kind of like my favorite color. Black and gold, just like my team. All right. All righty, guys. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about has to do with a article that just dropped. It's an Airmail article from Howard Blum referencing this case. Thank you, Patricia, for your $5 super sticker. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And so I highly recommend going through and reading the entire thing. It's called Eyes of a Killer Part 6, maybe. I don't know my numerals. More than 2 years after the murders at the University of Idaho, students, prosecutors are ready to offer a motive. All right. So this is the motive. This is what he thinks is the reason why Bryan Kohberger committed this crime. So once upon a time, the yarn the state is hoping to spin begins. Bryan Kohberger was incomplete. He had laboriously strived to reinvent his life by the time he had enrolled in his master's program of criminal justice at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. He kicked his heroin addiction, lost more than 100 pounds, and turned his body into a fortress through exercise. Sorry, Howard. Remember that? Who remembers Big Blue's party trick comment that Bryan Kohberger could do? You guys remember it, man? Put it in the chat if you guys remember what it was. It had to do with a Howard Blum article. This is for those that have been watching for a long time to remember that. He turned his body into a fortress through exercise, a vegan diet, and boxing, and made his way out of a dismal community college, and yet something was still missing. Connor, I think Connor, there it is. Let's see. Then he found his calling, forensic psychology, the new science of exploring dark caverns lurking in the recess of criminal minds. And as luck would have it, he found an unlikely friend, a champion to guide him, Katherine Ramsland. It's interesting. So now obviously I've read this, and I was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. This is an interesting take. I personally thought there was a lot of things, like me personally, before we read further, my motive thought for him is that it's multifaceted. I think there was a lot of things that were going on in his life. Obviously, now we found out that he's purchased the K-bar knife and much of his kill kit before he's even moved down there. And so now Howard Blum's theory kind of makes sense. It's starting to think, all right, or you're starting to get the idea that he's getting this idea of doing this because of maybe his surroundings. During this time while he's in DeSales, I don't think he's going through much adversity, right? It wasn't like he was at Northampton where he was getting in trouble with some of the girls. At DeSales, it was online for the most part. Some of it was in class, but for the most part, it was online. His teacher or professor, I think it was Bolger or something like that nature. The female professor who ended up recommending him to the PhD program there at WSU, who'd only recommended 2 students in her entire career, stated that she had never met Bryan Kohberger in person, that their class was online. And a lot of that had to do with what, between 2021, 2022 was COVID and people were stuck indoors and things of that nature. And so he got this idea then. Now, I do think that maybe perhaps everything that was falling apart, he applied for a position at Pullman Police Department as an intern police officer. Now, we know that he applied sometime in the spring because there was an email of him talking about his application with the police chief of Pullman Police at the time. We then find out in the PCA, it specifies that he wrote an essay in the fall as he applied in the fall. So it sounds like to me that he didn't get the position in the spring, because why would you apply again for the fall? Now, he had some issues, as Howard Blum mentioned, heroin addict. He had some problems at his school, problems at Northampton. He got kicked out of the law enforcement school. He had to finish his junior year school. He didn't finish his junior year there. They kicked him out of law enforcement, put him in the HVAC class, and he didn't even finish that. They stopped him from finishing school his junior year. He went online, and his entire senior year was online. And so you have all these issues that were coming up. That doesn't make you a prime candidate for an intern police officer or for police officer, period. Now, there are background checks. I went and searched this for Pullman Police Department. If they do a background check for intern police officers, and they do one just as thorough as if they were going to be hired on as a police officer, because they're going to have access to a lot of different things, including maybe not necessarily carrying weapons, but they're going to be around weapons, etc. And so they end up having to go through a background check, and I'm sure they go through. I'm not familiar with their program, so I don't know if they got to go through an academy, if they got to go and get a peace officer license or any of those things. I'm not familiar at all, so I don't know. But if it was like a ride along type of thing, but with more of a I guess a formality to it, then I can see not having to go through the academy or whatnot. But if they did, then I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look more into it. But I digress. So what I'm thinking is they probably looked in his background and said, you probably not, and we're going to want you to come out here. You do good. We'll look at it. And then maybe in the spring, you can, we'll pick you up. And which is why he applied in the fall. Now, he gets there. He's at WSU. He's fighting with his professor right away. Problems right away. And, I'm thinking, he loses his job there. I think he sent some messages. I think Blum had written in his book something about the effect that he called the students brats, and that were complaining about, him being a tough grader, et cetera, et cetera. And so all those things were happening in his life. I felt that maybe that was the things that just kind of pushed him over the edge. He wanted to prove he was smarter than them because, in his document that he wrote, in his essay, he put on there that he wanted to help rural law enforcement agencies better understand, cloud forensics, et cetera, basically saying these backwoods hillbilly cops that don't know anything, trying to work on a dial phone still, he's going to want to go help them out. And so, that's where I was at. But this here sounds like he's looking up to maybe not necessarily Katherine Ramsland, but maybe some of the work and the persons that she's worked around with. Like maybe he's trying to grab her attention. Let's read this. Let's continue this. Sorry for the long pause in explaining my theory before we go into his. Let's see, but let's read this. It says, a recognized authority in psychological study of serial killers, a prolific author of at recent count 59 books, and familiar face in the true crime network and cable shows, where she reliably brings a measure of academic gravitas to the proceedings. The professor has done it all, and has Newsweek first revealed at the time of Kohberger's arrest, Ramsland was also his teacher. For a graduate class she taught at DeSales, he'd read her seminal work, Inside the Minds of a Serial Killer, Why They Kill, and Confessions of a Serial Killer, The Untold Story of Dennis Rader, the BTK Killer. I wonder if one of these books here are the ones that have the underlying page 118. You know what I'm saying? Because if he is trying to grasp her attention, right, or he's wanting to have her look into him, because she only looks at the prolific serial killers, and maybe perhaps he doesn't want her to catch him, but he wants to be the one that stumps her. I wonder what he would have highlighted. I wonder if it's one of these books. Now, this is all my opinion, so take that for what it is. In fact, let me put my little banner up real quick. There we go. Hey, what's going on? I see Dr. Vona coming in. What's going on? We got to get you back on the show. All right, so let's continue this. Yeah, what the prosecution discovered, which has not been previously reported, is that Kohberger's relationship and league with Ramsland did not end when he traveled across country to enroll in the PhD criminal justice program at Washington State University. He remained her acolyte. Kohberger was allegedly emailing his old professor in the days before the murders occurred and in the days immediately after. That's crazy. That's crazy. I wonder what is the gist of those emails. I wonder what, man, I hope that's something that is shown in court. But to me, this is interesting. This could actually point towards that motive, because again, much, if not all of the stuff that he purchased to commit this crime was purchased while he was in Pennsylvania. And this is Dr. Ramsland there. What was discussed remains, for now at least, another mystery. Neither the state nor Ramsland has responded to the request for comment. Nevertheless, Airmail has learned that just hours after Kohberger's arrest, Ramsland allegedly telephoned his mother to offer her wisdom and guidance to help her former student and his family through the looming ordeal. Her offer to act as the cool-headed broker for the Kohbergers was quickly accepted. The Kohbergers supposedly refused to meet with their son's court-appointed Pennsylvania attorney until Ramsland signed off. That is weird. I'm just gonna say that's weird. I mean, this is like this is my opinion. I feel like this is like a weird thing. I don't like it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like it. I don't like this. I mean, the optics of this is like weird. This is weird. He wants to nail her down to write about him. I agree, Dr. Vaughn. I agree 100%. That is exactly what he's wanting to do. And I think he would have wanted her to write about him. Maybe that's what he's talking about in those emails. If in the email correspondence after the murders were about the murders, maybe he's trying to spark her interest into the murders so that she looks into it. Interesting. This proves BK is innocent, of course. I know that was that was sarcasm. All right, let's continue. Over 2 years that followed, the professor allegedly stayed in touch with the family as well as Kohberger himself. Oh, wow. So she's still in touch with him, offering sources, practical advice to help navigate the often overwhelming intricacies of the stern criminal justice apparatus. She's even reportedly conferred with one of the Kohberger sisters, who is said to be writing an insider account of their wrenching family drama. In fact, the beleaguered family has asked her to consider accompanying them to the Boise bed and breakfast that Ann Taylor, the head of their son's defense team, has reserved for them during the course of trial. So she's going to be sitting with them. She's going to be sitting with them on the side of Bryan Kohberger. She favors Bryan Kohberger. I wonder if, her alliance to him, I don't think means that she thinks he's innocent. In fact, I think it would probably mean the opposite. I think that if this guy was innocent and she thought that, maybe she would probably speak out more, in my opinion. Be like, no, they're railroading this guy. I believe in his innocence, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that she's silent on it, so quiet, doesn't feel that way. Book deal, definitely. So this is my opinion again. But she stayed in contact with him, and she's not arguing about his innocence. So I don't know. So her alliance with him isn't a sign that he's innocent. And I think it's probably more so that she wants another confessions book. Maybe if he confesses and wants to give the details about what he did, she wants to be the one to write it down and put it on the book about how he felt. I mean, I'm not sure how her story is going to go if he gets convicted and she thinks he's innocent. Like, what book she going to write? That's not her genre. That'd be like me being a Steelers fan and then writing a book about the Indianapolis Colts or something random. It's still about football, but it's not my my audience. You get what I'm saying? And again, she's not out there fighting for his innocence. She's not declaring he's innocent, that, oh, I knew him, he couldn't have done this. Nothing, absolutely nothing, complete silence. And given the fact that she's had no problems, being cordial with serial killers and getting to know them, isn't a sign that she thinks he's innocent, in my opinion, at least. This could be like, all right, if this guy confesses, I want to be the guy I want to be the person that writes this down. This goes on to say, Kohberger wanted to prove the pupil was ready to become the teacher. He was determined to demonstrate to the professor, who was, according to this theory, was the idolized object of his respect and affection. Interesting. That he learned all of her lessons well. And while journeying into hell and had been judicious, reaching out in letters and interviews to convicted killers, he would charge full speed into the belly of the beast. And he's right. He did. I mean, he's got her attention. She's giving him advice. She's, telling the family what to do, as far as meeting the court-appointed attorney. She might be going out to this bed and breakfast, which I don't know if that was necessarily the best thing to put out there. I don't like Bryan Kohberger, but at the same time, I wouldn't want anybody to like attack his family at this bed and breakfast. He probably shouldn't have put, just my opinion. I don't know if that's, because those things can be searched. Now, it's Boise, so there might be a few bed and breakfasts out there that you'd have to go through. But I think that you're funneling that through, and I don't have anything against his family members. I think what he did was absolutely horrible and evil, and he has justice coming for him. But I'm not sure his family, would deserve anything. Obviously, wouldn't deserve anything, like that. So, yeah, I don't know about that part being put in here. That's just me. All right, let's see. But even more, he'd kill and get away with it. He'd prove how smart he was. He would show how much he'd learned. And the hypothesis continued. With the raging, crackling anger that was unleashed, Kohberger would demonstrate to the object of his devotion the sacrifices he was prepared to make to win her comradeship. Now, let's think about this, right? So this is somebody he's probably looking up to. Really, really looking up to. And if he's doing well and she's writing like, you're doing a good job, Bryan. And we've already seen where the defense stated that he had a problem with understanding friendship as romantic passes. I mean, it wasn't stated in that specific way, but it stated that not understanding romantic instances, or whatever the case may have been, he may have taken those signs of like, hey, great job, good work, you got an A, as something more. That's what it sounds like, at least. Like John Hinckley, who had tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan in to win the heart of actress Jodie Foster, a woman he'd never met. Kohberger was driven by his own twisted erotomania. There you go. Kohberger, too, would let his demons run free, and in the end, he'd triumph. His far vision would take him someplace where his mentor had never dared to journey, and in the proud aftermath with his struggles, he'd at last be complete. What does Ramsland make of it? She apparently not talking. She never responded to my emails. Nevertheless, she might find something in this theory. After all, in another episode in her remarkably accomplished life, she wrote her doctoral dissertation on Kierkegaard. It was that Danish philosopher who conceded that my writing should be considered a monument to Rain Olsen, a woman with whom he had a brief youthful relationship. Is it too far a stretch to consider that a killer's logic had made a similar heartfelt journey? Interesting. Dr. Vaughn, I definitely need to get you on the show to go over this theory, because there's a lot to compile on here, given and knowing everything that we've that the defense has stated about him, their concerns about his mental status and the way the jury's going to perceive him, et cetera, et cetera. I wonder how he'd act differently if Dr. Ramsland was in the court. I wonder if he'd change anything about him. Be an interesting thing to take notice, so to speak. Sam comes in saying, I wonder if the thumbs up pick was a thumbs up to his professor. Well, that's possible. We have Elaine coming in with a 199 super sticker. Thank you so much. We have, I believe that's Kel coming in with a gifted Drunk Turkey Show membership. Thank you so much. Just coming in with a $5 super sticker. You guys rock. Daniel, the case inspired Ramsland to go for forensic psych where co-ed murders in the 60s. Interesting. What case is that? Oh, the co-ed murders in the 60s. Huh. Interesting. That's an interesting point there. You know, if that's what inspired her, and then he goes out and commits some sort of co-ed murders, and that's another interesting point there. I mean, there might be something to it. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. But I think that there could be something there. It seems that everyone who knows BK, even his own lawyer, has remarked of how weird BK is. That's true. That is true. He knows what his true motivation is, probably truth in a few different things. I agree. As a professor, I think this crosses boundaries. No. Huh. I got to get you on the show, Dr. Vona. We're going to have to set this up. We're going to talk about this. You are the closest that I have to somebody that is a they can and could be in this. Well, maybe not could be in this situation. I hope you never are, but could understand Dr. Ramsland's situation, and from a professional perspective, maybe give us an explanation of what you think, maybe what you would do. Maybe not necessarily what she's doing, because there's no way of knowing, right? We're not her. And so, yeah, we got to get you on the show. She speaks on it herself. The BTK series she did. It's wild to see similarities. Worth a watch. Definitely take a look. I'll take a look. The theory is wild. It is wild. I will say that. But if he did contact Dr. Ramsland the days leading up to the murders and the days after, and that's the only time that he's contacted her, that there's something there. There's something there. That's not just coincidence. You know, there are no coincidences. There's something there. He wants to be BTK probably. That right there is the one thing that really stood out to me in this article, was the fact that he had contacted her days before and days after. Interesting stuff. BK definitely has a fetish for Dr. Ramsland and wants her to write his story, so that's why he's immortalized. Thank you so much, Las Vegas girl, for your $4.99. I think there is definitely something here. I definitely think there could be something here. And I think that maybe she being Dr. Ramsland is ready for that confession book. You know, part 2, Confessions of a Serial Killer. Although I don't think you can clarify, you can classify BK as a serial killer, because his murders happen in one series of events, in one event, and so I think serial killing has to have a series of events. I always wondered if, as a teen, he observed any of his sisters acting in that knife slasher movie 2 days back. Probably did. He probably did. 1,000 people in here. Yeah, actually, all on all aspects, we have 1,213 people in here. Thank you so much, guys. Let's hit the like button. Let's subscribe. Let's ring the notification bell. Let's do it all. All right. The next thing I wanted to do real quick for you guys is I wanted to play a little bit of an interview that Steve did with Ashley Banfield. He goes in a little bit more details. I'm not going to play the whole thing, just a couple of snippets here. But he goes into a little bit of details of the injuries. And so viewer discretion is advised on this one.
I think you mentioned some of the details that the coroner. I had a conversation with the coroner early in the case, and she shared with us that Xana had some very severe defensive wounds. Like Xana had fought very, very aggressively with this killer. And I think that the coroner may have shared something with you about some of the injuries that Kaylee had, right?
Yeah, she did. And she was struck in the face. Her nose was broken. There was multiple hits from what I've been told, and I'm trying to be careful with my words. But the blows that he sustained, delivered to her, would have killed her.
All right. So he broke her nose, and the blows sustained would have killed her. We've seen a picture of his hand. It looks swollen. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw it was this guy wearing knuckles, brass knuckles, those type of things, in one hand and a knife in the other. And, he may have pinched himself. Maybe that's why he has, that Band-Aid looking thing on his finger. The bends in his hands, like those bruises, could have been from that. But for the damage to have been caused, it seems like it definitely was a second, weapon, whether it be brass knuckles or it be the bottom of the knife itself, the blunt force object part of the knife, the bottom of it. That's also a possibility that it may not have been another item, another weapon itself, but the weapon used in a different manner. But that's sad to hear. I feel bad for you, my man. Hope you're doing all right.
Really?
Yeah.
If the knife wounds hadn't, the blows would have?
Yeah.
Was there any other detail that the coroner shared?
Yeah, there's definitely other details, but I'm going to let them have the opportunity to release that information, because I don't want to overstep them, but it sounds like it's about to come out. So I'm looking forward to that.
Anything that you can share that wouldn't compromise the case?
That's the thing. It's why I always ask for more communication, because it's things like this where we're like, you can tell us a safe thing to bring up, and you can tell us when this stuff's going to come out, or you could just let us figure it out on our own. Because I told him, you met a father who's not going to, I'm not going to remain silent. Not over this. My daughter would expect me to stand up for her, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'll go to jail if that's what it comes down to. If you're going to arrest me because you need me to be silent and think I'm going to protect the guy who killed my kid, I'm never going to protect him. Once I knew that he was guilty, and that wasn't right off the bat. It took me a considerable amount of information and facts before I made a decision that, all right, they got the right guy. And then at that point, it was just, what can I do to help? How can we get this over, get this process started, let people know that the evidence and the facts are there, and then we can just get this done. Because
there was a time I did have a conversation with you, a couple of conversations, I'd say like a year ago, where I feel like you really were concerned that he was going to get off. Like you were starting to really question.
There's a part that I want to hear. We're not going to listen to this whole thing, but there's one part I want to hear up here. It's coming up, guys.
The evidence, the case against him, the case that Ann Taylor was building. Is that accurate to say that you started to really fear?
Yeah, there was fear. There was such a lack of leadership in the courtroom. There was things that were just going all over the place, and nothing was really getting done. So yeah, I got nervous there. I had insight on things that are still not public. I knew a lot of different things that I just didn't understand why you would hide such strong evidence. And so, you start wondering, is something else going on?
I remember what it is. He talks about the searches, the Google searches.
Oh, we wanted to keep it there. So
let me see if I can find it.
In the end, is what was needed.
Let's talk about this detail that you've learned about Bryan Kohberger. We were all shocked to see the photograph, the selfie that was snapped just hours after the murders in front of his shower. But you've learned what he did after that. What was it?
Yeah, I learned about a tally of some girls that were having conflicts and feeling like he was doing things that were making them very nervous, following them outside of the classroom, standing in front of the door, forcing them to go around him, basically forcing interactions. And they were just trying to do everything to avoid him. So how I understand it, they communicated this to management structure there. They said, document things. They started documenting that this tally that they put together.
That's exactly what I said was happened. Remember, I told you guys they had that document where it said that the defense said, "Oh, Bryan Kohberger was cleared of the investigation against him from a couple of students that were at WSU." And I said, "All right, look, let's think about this logically. If they cleared him, there was an investigation. You can't clear somebody from something without investigating it. So you got cleared, there's an investigation. You can't investigate something without an accusation. So there was an accusation there. My thoughts were immediately it was probably some sort of he said, she said. He's looking at me crazy. He's following me, like Steve said, not letting me leave, making me go around him, yada, yada, yada. And like I told Steve in our interview, I was like, if it's not written down, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. And so they probably told him to write things down, which is why they had this Bryan tally. I mean, it's the only logical explanation for all of that. And I mean, it fits every piece in every corner. That's probably what had occurred. And so when you see that, you hear that, right? So that means that after the investigation, Bryan Kohberger was still doing things. That investigation, that accusation didn't cease the behavior. He couldn't help himself. There wouldn't be a tally of these things if he did. Makes sense? Makes sense.
And from that,
what is that called? You're saying a tally? What was that?
I thought it was called like the Bryan tally. Is what it was described to me as?
I'm not sure. Is this the place he works?
Yes. This is the classroom in which he's a teacher aide in.
That's the name of the classroom. I hadn't heard the name before, but that's what this is. So this is basically the classroom where he is working. He's making everybody feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and the tally is when they went to I don't know if it was HR, but they went to people in the school and said, "Hey, I noticed something. This girl noticed something, but it's still kind of hearsay." So then they're saying, document it, the time, the place, the things, a witness, those type of things. So they did do that, and that was going on, and that's how where he doesn't look sick to me, but what does that give him? That gives him a whole day to go over figuring out how they're responding to what he's done. So he could sit there, gloat, and Google search, do the same things we were doing to try to figure out what was going on.
Or continue, if he's the guilty party, continue cleaning up, continue making sure that there's not a trace left.
Well, I hope and I suspect that the searches that he did before the 911 call will do him in. The activities that he did before anyone knew what happened, those will be the final nail in this case.
Well, for a criminology PhD, doesn't seem very smart. I mean, who buys a knife and a sheath and a sharpener on?
Makes a lot of valid points there, but at the end, I said it last time when we had Steve on and he talked about prior knowledge. Then he said he was comfortable with him going at 9 a.m. That led me to believe that there was a Google search. There was some sort of search that indicated that he had prior knowledge. It wasn't the Papa Rogers, it wasn't inside looking, which I don't know. Maybe there is something there. Maybe there is something there. I have no idea, to be honest with you. I don't know. And so I should have asked Steve. That was one of the questions that I think I wrote down. It just slipped my mind. Well, anywho, prior knowledge to me, when he mentioned that he was comfortable enough to go back at 9 a.m., was a clear indication to me that he made a search. Now, why would he make a search? Well, he's walking out and he sees somebody. Now, Dylan says that she saw the eyebrows and she felt that the person saw her and that she saw that person. They made eye contact because she saw an eyebrow or eyebrows. If that's the case and he's taking off, remember, he turns on his phone. That was odd. He turns on his phone just a few miles south of Moscow. Moscow. Why? It has to be the curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. You know, the way the saying goes. He's probably thinking, shoot, they saw me. I'm turning on my phone. And he's probably just looking up Google News, see if anything happens, maybe even trying to listen to dispatch or something. But, you know, I'm starting to think that if he's Google searching, that he did not have a remote or a radio. So when I've said in the past that I thought he had a radio, that he felt comfortable enough to go back, I gave him too much credit for his intelligence. And I put that in quotations, thinking that he wouldn't Google search it. I didn't think he would be that stupid. You know, I thought, well, if he was comfortable enough to go back, he may have had a police radio. Don't seem to be the case. I don't think that ends up being the case given this information. You see, guys, I follow the evidence and I follow the information that as it comes and as we get presented with it. I don't stick to a narrative or to anything. It just so happens that all the evidence and information points into the guilt of Bryan Kohberger. But as I said before, I thought maybe he had a walkie-talkie or something. Maybe he took it from the chem lab because the chem lab had office supplies and a bunch of other things. Well, he's Google searching. I no longer believe that that's the case. I've scratched that out. That's, you know, him using some sort of dispatch device is no longer a thought. That's been ruled out. Just kind of like a lot of the other things. A lot of people say, oh, why don't you keep an open mind about this or that? It's because it's been ruled out. There's no point in keeping it in there. And so ruled out. He was searching it. He probably, you know, saw Dylan, got antsy about it, went home, waited, maybe not searching Idaho murders yet on his way home. But, you know, come 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, I guarantee you, he's probably like, there's got to be something on the news now. And that might be when they busted his ass. And that's what's going to be a nail in his coffin, because now you have him out and about at that odd particular hour, right? You have his vehicle being seen on camera without a front license plate, or a vehicle matching one very similar to his without a front license plate. His DNA at the scene underneath the body of a victim on a item that was brought in by the killer. Those items, including the K-bar knife, traced back to Bryan Kohberger. Like I mentioned, his phone was not just off during the murders, but it turns on and he's south of Moscow after the murders. You know, you have the complete purchase of the kill kit, and now you have prior knowledge. I mean, talk about a bow on top of this, gift here for the court system. Because this, like I said at the beginning of this case, or the beginning of this podcast, I predicted maybe an hour verdict. Sounds like once you start putting in, we don't even know everything yet. And once we get everything else, I mean, this communication between Bryan Kohberger and Dr. Ramsland days before and after the murders is eye-opening, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let's see. Kelko comes in gifting a 1 Drunk Turkey Show membership. Thank you so much. Thank you. Las Vegas girl comes in saying BK definitely has a fetish with Dr. Ramsland and wants her to write this story. I think I may have read that one. Yes. This is crazy. Why wouldn't she support victims' family members? I'm assuming you're referencing Dr. Ramsland. You know, I don't know if it's necessarily not a support of victim family members, that is, it is, you know, being on their good side so that she can write a book. You know, their good side, I mean, like the Kohbergers. Strongly, that's my opinion. I think that could be what that is. Shannon comes in with a $5 super chat, says the judge offered AT even more assistance. She will be grounded for an appeal. Yeah, I agree. That's a great point, actually. That is a great point. Let's see. is there a chance BK would have been hired by a legit police department? I do hiring for a city. His PHQ would be immediately rejected. 100%. Yeah, I honestly, like I said, I thought he wouldn't have been a candidate for any law enforcement agency. Let's see. Marty brings up an excellent point. Considering he was communicating with her like that's probably why she's refused to speak about the case to the public since it happened. I mean, that's one thing, but I mean, there's also the, staying in touch, giving assistance, kind of taking control of this, which I guess, if you're the Kohbergers, you probably understand their reasoning behind it. She's somebody who has experience, with high profile cases and things of that nature. It's just, her assistance in it behind it is what I'm saying is like, okay, but don't think that it's because she thinks he's innocent, because she clearly has befriended and written down books and things of that nature of some high profile killers. Many say look up Ted Bundy. Yeah, Ted Bundy and Bryan Kohberger have a lot of, in my opinion, I think Kohberger took a lot of liking to Ted Bundy and try to mimic some of the things he did. Oh, wow. Just Joseph coming in with 5 Drunk Turkey Show memberships. Thank you so much, Joseph. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Will the Kohbergers suddenly finally give up and say Kohberger most likely no. You could have a video of him doing it and they'll say something like, oh, it's AI or that's what they said about my interview with Steve. I even told the guys in the Discord, I told the chat in the Discord, I was like, hey, I wonder what the Kohbergers are going to say. I bet you they're going to say it's AI. And this is right before I put it out there, the interview. And then sure enough, somebody sends me a video that they said that it was AI. And I was like, I said the comment, I was like, it's not that I'm psychic. Because, I'll make up the joke that it's psychic Daniel or whatever the case may be. I was like, it's not that I'm psychic. It's that the Kohbergers are too stupid that they're predictable. And it's come to the point where, I could put something out there and then, all right, well, we can guesstimate what they're going to say or do because of how predictable they are. And sometimes I'll be honest with you, I push certain things out and say certain things to push certain buttons because I know how predictable they're going to respond. And then they put me out there and publicize those interviews and those lives and send it out to more people. And the subscriber list keeps going up and everything else. And I want to thank you and thank you all for finding us and subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing, ringing the notification button. When you guys do that, for liking, that tells YouTube you want to listen to it and watch this show more often, right? I've had a lot of people tell me, hey, I'm subscribed, I ring the notification button, but I'm not getting notified of the live. We got to like it. If you're liking other content, they're going to throw out that content as a notification first. So make sure you like it, subscribe, comment. When you do that, you are fighting the Kohbergers. You are fighting for common sense and justice, in my opinion. Well, guys, how do you join the Discord? You do got to be a member. Hit the join button. It's in the description. It'll say become a member, and there's a little link. You hit that link. If you don't see the join button, hit that link in the description. It'll take you there. And right now, here in about 5 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead, maybe a little bit less than that. I'm gonna post up the Discord link in the members only chat. And so thank you, Midwest, for a $1.99 super sticker. You guys rock. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, everybody. Until next time, I'll be back probably. So tomorrow I'm going to be on Sleuth Intuition. We're going to be talking about, I'm assuming my interview with Steve. We haven't really talked about what we're going to talk about, but I'm going to be on Sleuth Intuition's channel tomorrow night. And then maybe a little bit later, I'll come on if there's any more documents that are dropped or anything of importance. If not, I'll be back on Thursday. We'll see you guys then. Until next time. Peace.